A brand new electric car that is less than €17,000 in Ireland. Impossible? Not anymore. The new Dacia Spring. Welcome to Nobby on Cars. This is a funky little machine. If you charge at a rate of 9 to 10 cents at home, you'll charge this car to full for less than €3. You wouldn't even get an Americano in Dublin for that price, but you can do over 200 kilometers, give or take temperatures and all the usual stuff that is part of driving an EV. But nonetheless, this is a car that you can get with 0% finance, zero deposit. It may be your first car, it could certainly be your first EV. Today we're going to have a little look around and see, is it actually worth all the hype and is it worth the money? The little front grille stands for a cityscape. That is actually like looking at a bird's eye pigeon view of just the design of a built up city. We have our DC charging option connection here. 30 kilowatt DC charging. That's all you need on a battery this size. This car weighs 984 kilos, so it doesn't actually need a whole lot of power. The highest brake horsepower output is just 65 brake horsepower. But because it's so light, it's really good at handling and it doesn't need a huge amount of power to make it move. You will definitely get 4 people into this vehicle in terms of comfort, and comfort is the word because even the wheels are tiny, so all the lumps and bumps that we're used to on 20-inch wheels, they're just not a thing on the Spring. On the Spring, you get up to 5 years warranty and 8 years warranty on the battery. And the boot is an interesting place, but before we get into that, let's just have a little look at the new revised Dacia logo over the back. There is a wiper, more of that cityscape lower down on the car, and your button for opening the boot is right here. It feels so light, it's brilliant. The boot space in here is 308 litres. There's a bit of storage down below, and you don't have to put your Type 2 charging cables in the boot of this A-segment car, but actually B-segment space in terms of literage in the boot, because there's something up the front. The boot is just so light. It's brilliant. Not sure I'd want to be involved in a massively heavy crash in this car because it's small and light, but as a city vehicle, it's absolutely perfect because everything is lightweight. It's the lightest EV on the market and probably the cheapest car in the market, EV or not. And also on the front, this doesn't have a huge frunk as such, but you can buy an accessory tray where you can stick your Type 2 cables and maybe some other small bits. And actually, it's all about Y-clip on the Dacia range. There's accessories that you can buy like torches and headrest backs for devices, a little takeaway bag clip that goes in the front of the car. The little nibs are in the car and you buy the attachments as you so want them and attach them onto the car. This car has a 26.8 kilowatt hour battery. Yes, it's small. It has 14 and 15-inch wheels. And on the 65 brake horsepower, because there's actually a 45 as well, you get DC charging. And this car should be good for about 13 litres per 100 kilometers, which is really, really efficient and would suggest you get in and around the 200 kilometer out of one single charge. Let's not beat around the bush here. The back of the Spring is snug. I don't think you're necessarily going to get infant seats with the big shelves in the back, depending on how much you can move. Certainly the driver's seat. Perhaps with the back seat you possibly will. Head height is just about okay. There's nothing to charge anything with. There's no center armrest, anything like that. But you got to remember, this is a car that is perfect for 4 adults, certainly. Kind of more grown-up kids in the back. They'll fit fine. It's all about the affordability, the weight saving, and how cheap this little baby is to run. But as the back stands, yes, it is a little bit compromised. I have not seen pop-up pins for locking doors since the early 90s. Welcome back for the Spring. Simplicity is the name of the game up front in the Spring. So you get physical knobs, physical buttons for climate control, 2 USB-C charging ports, and your windows even are here on the center area. At first I was like, where are the window switches? Please tell me they've at least kept some way of opening the window. And of course they had. Now you can BYOD, bring your own device, with entry versions of most Dacia models, including the Spring. But if you prefer a screen, you can get different trim specs with that also. There's a floating shelf up here for keeping some devices, washable floor mats, a decent sized driver instrument, and a very familiar Dacia steering wheel complete with physical buttons and all the things you need. And really, it's in some ways a basic enough car, but not that basic that it feels not at home in 2025. It's just affordable. I mean, it even has a handbrake and a key for starting an EV, which is not the norm. Do I feel like I'm driving Mr. Bean's car behind the wheel of this little Spring? A little bit. When you floor it, this is the thing, it moves. So it has 65 brake horsepower. Well, this version I'm driving does. You feel no matter how far you're back, you're kind of a little bit on top of the steering wheel. You're sitting kind of high. But there's just a real sense of fun. There's a lovely sense of back to basics, back to nature with this car, even though it's an EV. It's kind of irrelevant because the handling is brilliant because it's so light. Now the steering is very, very vague, kind of. But the thing that I was most concerned about was I was like 65 brake horsepower. Now I'm sure the 45 is just a little bit too little. But again, if you've never heard of the description of power to weight, it's really relevant here. So essentially it means how much brake horsepower per ton does a car have. And in this case, well, not a lot, but the point is it doesn't even weigh a ton. So it's just fine. It really is fine. 65 brake horsepower, it just does the job. Just flooring it now and it's really wet, and I'm not even detecting the littlest amount of wheel spin, which is good because a lot of electric cars, there's so much torque going through the front wheels. The brakes are really surprising actually. They bite so well. They bite like a normal car bites, and by that I mean when you press the brake pedal there's no sort of vagueness that you get with some EVs. It just wants to bring you to a stop, and I like that. As I look at the range, 94%, 169 kilometers. I'm sure 200 is on a really positive, sunny, warm day somewhere in Central Europe going down a big hill. But nonetheless, Dacia say the average journey in Ireland is about 37 kilometers in total per day. So if you want a short commute car, this is it. I'm not saying if you need to drive to Cork once or twice a week you should buy a Spring, because that would probably do your head in. But if you don't leave your area too often, and you can always plan for the odd longer journey, you can't overlook the price of this car and how little you can run it for. Let's just give it the roundabout test. A little bit of a squeeze. It is so small. Am I Postman Pat or Postman something else that rhymes with at the end? Well, you can let me know in the comments. But like, this thing is keeping up with traffic just fine. It's doing the speed limit. It's tipping along. No issues. That's the biggest thing. If I can communicate anything to you today, it's that 65 brake horsepower in a car this size actually works. It will do 7 kilowatt charging on a normal wall box at home. As I mentioned, 30 kilowatt DC is the fastest speed. That will take about 40 minutes to get to 80%. A little bit longer than your average EV, but I just don't think a Spring is going to see too much DC faster charging. It just won't be necessary. And obviously it's advisable to have a proper charger at home with an isolator and all the rest of it to prevent overheating. But you can charge this on a 3-pin plug because, well, you can charge any electric car on a 3-pin plug, but the point is the battery capacity is not so large that you'd be charging on a 3-pin plug for 3 days. You'd still manage to get it overnight. So think back to the early Nissan Leaf in terms of battery size, and they were well able to charge with the granny cable. No reason why this will be any different. A lot of the physical switches are very, very welcome. There's not too much fiddling behind the screen. So again, if you're someone who just wants a simple car that's easy to use, that's easy to drive, shouldn't really have anything go wrong with it. Again, less moving parts in an EV. It's genuinely a brilliant little car. Something else that I love is the fact that this thing has vehicle to load. So you can charge devices, external devices in this car. Whether that's a coffee machine, charge an electric bike if you like your hiking. I mean, it's not the biggest car for a lifestyle outdoorsy person. You'd probably want the new Duster for that, and they're launching that car here as well. It starts from €25,000, rises for the hybrid version to mid-30s, but still a lot of car for that price. And I've actually reviewed that in Malaga earlier on in the year, so I'll leave a link to that video for you to watch at the end of this video. If you reckon, you know, the $5,000 or so entry price between that and the highest spec, this is worth a look at. But needless to say, you won't get the hybrid version of the Duster for that price. You've got to spend the mid-30s. So affordability wise, there is nothing else on the market as of now that can compete with this car. This car is so small that it only has one windscreen wiper, because that's all it needs. And that kind of tells you all you need to know about the simplified way of getting around in a car. It's a mobility solution, it's no frills, but it's actually perfectly adequate, more than adequate. And it's a little bit of fun. And you can charge it for feck all. I'm in. I really am in. Well done, Dacia. Or Dacia. Or Dacia. Or... look, leave me a comment and tell me how to pronounce it. Tell me I'm getting it totally arseways. My parting shot, I will say, and Renault haven't even included a park button on the new Renault 5. So I'm not that surprised the Dacia Spring doesn't have a park button. But it's a little bit unnerving with an automatic. You have to pop it into neutral, then put on the handbrake. So bear that in mind. Don't let it roll down a hill. This is a truly brilliant little car. If you don't need lots of space, even the top spec is less than €20,000. And as I said at the outset, you can charge this thing for less than the price of a cup of coffee with no milk, no frothing, no fanciness. In fact, far less. You'd have to go back probably 10 years to get a cup of coffee at the price that you can charge this at home. And if you don't have a charger, you can even charge the battery in a 3-pin plug, because the battery is so small. It is truly affordable private motoring, and if you want an EV with the Spring on the market, you really now have no excuse. Let me know what you think of this quirky little car in the comments down below, and thank you for coming this far in the video. If you'd like to consider subscribing to the channel, really would appreciate it. Trying to get to 50,000 subs as quick as I can, and thank you for watching. See you in the next one.